Hello, my name is Dr. Corey Wren. I'm a vegan sociologist and vegan feminist, and this is Mishka. I thought I would bring Mishka, well, I love to bring Mishka into the camera today because I wanted to talk a little bit about intersexuality and animals. So a little bit of history about Mishka. Mishka's from Bulgaria, and when I adopted her, I had two cats, one of which had just died, and so I had this extra space in the house. And as a vegan, having an empty space when I have the space to adopt, it's like I treat it like an emergency. I have a space to fill. I'm going to spill. I have a space to fill, and I'll fill that space as soon as I can. However, I also had another cat who was going through some serious health issues and was not long for this world either. And she was also quite timid. And so I needed to adopt an animal who would be okay with being indoors and also be okay with other animals. And unfortunately, this was also during COVID. And during COVID, there was a mad dash here in the UK for people to adopt dogs. And so there weren't very many dogs actually here in Canterbury where I live. And those that were here had not been tested with cats. So unfortunately, I could not take a risk with a local dog with my cat, Miss Trudy, R.I.P., who did die about 1.5 years later from breast cancer, bless her heart. So anyway, I had to go elsewhere, and I ended up looking in Bulgaria because there's a vegan sanctuary here that works with this British woman who lives in Bulgaria and scoops dogs off the street. Yeah. Socializes them and sends them over here to the UK. So that's how Mishka came to me. Now, how did I choose Mishka? Normally what I do when I go to adopt is I say, give me the one that nobody else wants, which is how I ended up with this little squirt right on cue, Cassie. But Cassie's another story. Not today. This is not your day. This is Mishka's day. Anyway. So on camera, I wandered in Mishka, and the woman who was adopting her out said, oh yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with this one because she's got a little bit of both parts. Well, she said different words. And I said, interesting. Well, she was a bit worried that Mishka would not be adoptable basically because she was intersex. And so I said, well, that's the dog for me. And also I could tell that her temperament was, as you can tell, pretty laid back and probably good for the cats. Although she does like to fight with the cats. She not in a serious way, but she likes to get territorial and bark at them, and that's her excitement. The cats don't care. They've been raised around her. They don't pay her any mind. I think they realize also that she's deaf. Mishka was born deaf. Mishka has 2 different color eyes. She has heterochromia. She was born with no tail. Shall we show the people? Yeah. Well, there's a little bit of a tail in there, but it's, obviously a little bunny tail is all we get. She also has deformities in her feet. You can see that she has pads on top of her feet. There's 2 sets of nails that I have to trim. And her back feet are actually pretty bad. You can kind of see. So the older that she's gotten, she's just turned 6. The older she's gotten, the more difficult it is for her to walk and run. She does not run in a while, actually. When she was younger, more sprightly, she was running all over the place, but not so much anymore. So she's now, because she's getting older and she's getting sleepy. She's getting joint issues from that, which a lot of small dogs get anyway. I have to put her in a mobility device, aka the dog buggy, which she loves. So anyway, that's the story of Mishka. And I think really, to be honest with Mishka, while she probably is intersex, is because of all these genetic things going on at once. She probably was interbred being a street dog. So that's neither here nor there, because I want to be very clear that when I'm about to talk about intersex folks, that does not mean that intersex folks are inbred. That is a stereotype and not true. But what I wanted to talk about with Mishka then is the normalcy, actually, of intersexuality. Intersexuality, I hesitate to call it that because it's not a sexual orientation, it's just a sexual category or identity. But intersexuality basically means that you cannot be clearly put into one category of male or female. And this is actually quite normal among mammals. So dogs, between 1 and 2% of dogs will be born like Mishka, intersex in some way. And between 1 and 2% of human beings also will be born with some variation of intersex. And I say variation because there are multitudes. Cassie's coming back. No ma'am. No ma'am. So there's multitudes of types of intersex being, if you will. Some of those are visible, like with Mishka. Mishka actually was born with, I think she has a womb. I think she has a vagina. She definitely used to have testes. I saw a picture of them. When I decided to adopt Mishka, the rescue place took her to the vet for all her stuff and decided to go on ahead and take them out. I personally, being a gender scholar, probably would have just left them in there because I think that there's a lot of misnomers around the sex binary and how one has to be in one or the other. There's been a lot of activism actually over the past few decades from the intersex human community where they have not been able to consent to things that have been done to them when they were babies and children, but doctors and families, well-meaning, would actually modify children's bodies in order to ascribe to this idea that sex is supposed to match gender and that there's only one or the other. So actually it's quite a lot of horrific violence that's been done to human beings in the name of upholding the gender binary and the sex binary. So I personally would have left Mishka alone and just kept her the way she was. Like, I don't think having testes would have been any more debilitating than all the other stuff that she has going on. Mainly the thing that affects her, I think, is that her feet are just not fully with us. Look. Me. Being intersex is like Mishka shows us, really demonstrates that sex as a category is also culturally constructed, just like gender is socially constructed. This idea that you must be this or that, and then the society will force people into those boxes, and then we treat them differently based on those boxes. So it's really interesting to me. Like I consciously, when I actually have it right here, when I dress Mishka, I dress her quite gender ambiguously. She probably thinks we're going somewhere. Shouldn't have done that. I like to dress her in red, for instance. And that's just because she has no gender. First off, she's a dog. Dogs don't have gender. That's a human sort of thing. Whether or not other animals have gender is another video. But Mishka doesn't have gender. So when I dress her in gender ambiguous ways, just whatever, what looks cozy, it's interesting then because she's such a cute dog and I live in city center. I have a lot of people, I know, lots of people. Lots and lots of people come up and interact with her because she's just so cute, especially when she's in the buggy. The buggy is a major attractor. But people will then kind of default. It's kind of like when you meet a baby infant for the first time. You sort of make assumptions around what the dog is wearing and how the dog is being interacted with, and then you decide, oh, male or female. It's interesting that a lot of people will just actually default to male because that's what we do with animals, don't we? We default to males. And either we say it or we say he. And when we say he, that's because we live in a very androcentric, male-centric society. So we default to the male experience. So that happens with Mishka quite a lot. But a lot of people also ask me, and this is interesting too, because why does it matter? Why does it matter if she's male or female? What is the interest there to you about that? It's not because people want to know what's between my dog's little legs. It's because people want to know, how shall I now interact with this dog? And obviously it's a measure of respect. Sometimes it's curiosity. Sometimes it's like people who are interacting with Mishka want to respect her and her sex identity or whatever. But it's interesting because I'll usually just say she's both. She's male and female. And that's another reason why you might be wondering why I call her she when really she's they. And a lot of that is because I do live in city center and I just like constantly getting asked questions about Mishka, and I just cannot always deal with, all right, put on my gender lecturer hat and explain people the politics of gender identity. It's just easier sometimes to just say she. But if people do specifically ask, sometimes I will tell them she's also he and explain what intersex means. But I do default to she, but they is just as okay, and I think he is also okay. So if people call her he, I just go with he. Mishka's all these things. Unfortunately, it's not all just happy days and interesting thought experiment. Remember that the woman adopting her in Bulgaria was worried that she wouldn't be adoptable because she's intersex. And we also know from the human intersex community that there's a lot of stigma, a lot of discrimination, and a lot of bodily interference and straight up medical violence enacted historically on the intersex human community. But then when we look beyond this sort of civilized realm of humans and dogs into other realms of domestication and other non-human experiences, we see that actually, because we are mass producing chickens and cows and pigs and other animals in astronomical numbers, and oftentimes genetically modifying them so that they're deeply genetically similar, so that so it's a rationalized process basically, so that animals will grow in a certain way that is conducive to making it easier to grow them faster and to slaughter them at the same time, and have the same mechanized machinery that will be doing all these kind of deboning and defeathering and all this kind of stuff. So non-human animals, most domesticated non-human animals, have been deeply genetically modified, and they're produced in billions with a B. I'm not even talking about fish and other animals that live in the water, because then we're going into the trillions. But because of that system, the system that genetically tampers with animals and puts them under high stress situations, and we're producing billions, trillions of them, actually intersex animals are quite common in the food system as well. And, oh, you sleepy Gene. Oh, yes. But unfortunately, what that means is that a lot of producers, farmers, owners, exploiters, industry owners, whatever you want to call them, will put these animals to death pretty quickly, because they won't develop in the same way, or not thought that they will develop in the same way as non-intersex beings. So actually, for instance, cows who are born intersex, if they're not able to produce milk, well, they're not useful and they'll be killed. But other intersex animals that maybe won't be able to reproduce will be killed because they're not seen as useful. But then, like I also said, some intersex animals might be killed because they are not thought to, their bodies are not thought to be as standardized as the other animals that are being killed. So being intersex in the food system is actually a whole different ballgame of structural violence. The other category of intersex experience that we might talk about is how intersexuality, or sexual diversity is probably the best way to explain this. Sexual diversity is far greater than I think most people appreciate in the free living world, as in non-domesticated species. It's all kinds of amazing variations all across the natural world, so that the 1% and 2% that humans and dogs and maybe cows experience, we're just a tip of the iceberg. Actually, being intersex is a major part of many species. It's an intentional part, not just an accidental part. And it can be very evolutionarily advantageous to be intersex in a lot of cases. So I don't have the space and the time and the wherewithal to go into all the variations, but I would encourage you, if you're interested, to check out some of these other species. But really what the point is that I want to make here is that being intersex is not just a random occurrence, like I would say the 1% to 2% that maybe for humans and dogs is a random occurrence. But being intersex in other species has an explicit evolutionary sort of purpose. And this idea that there is the male or the female only really does not make sense when we look at a multi-species society. So I think from a vegan feminist perspective, thinking about the intersex community, the intersex case, if you will, can be very, very enlightening as to showing us how, just like the species boundary, just like race, just like gender, sex too can be socially and culturally constructed. And when we consider non-human animals, when we turn a lens to include non-human animals in our theory, in our activism, and our thinking, it can really stretch our theories, stretch our thinking, and stretch our activism, and encourage us to be more inclusive, but also to think about possibilities other than that which has been sort of foisted on us since birth. That being, you must be male or female, and here are the consequences thereof. So I hope that was interesting for you. People ask me a lot about Mishka. She has an interesting little buddy, isn't she? Let me know in the comments if you've ever had an intersex dog or another animal, or if you're intersex yourself, and what you thought about these intersections in intersexuality. But I think as someone who's taught gender and written in gender for a long time, I think that just the existence of people like Mishka is a wonderful reminder that we're living in an unnecessarily binary world that does not make sense in the larger sort of unnatural narrative. It's not our birthright. Sex diversity is our birthright. So, cheers everybody. Keep it feminist, keep it vegan, and bye-bye for now. There's been a lot of activism actually over the... Cassie, get down. Get down.